Hey, welcome Broken World Entertainment, and how to make a confusing situation even more confusing, as James Gunn is confirming that nothing is canon until Creature Commandos, and that some characters from the DCEU will be coming over to the DCU. Those characters, of course, are characters that firmly plant that yes, James Gunn's wife gets to keep her job. But how has he made things more confusing? Well, we're going to have a look at that. Now, everyone is pointing out that these new comments have killed Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I kind of refute that because, one, I think that movie was already DOA, and two, it was already killed off, as were the other three movies when he came out and initially fired Henry Cavill. So, what is this comments that have just made things even more confusing? Because let's face it, the DCU right now, DCU, DCEU, all of DC, is an absolute mess. And it's primarily because of James Gunn. When he walked in, fired Henry Cavill, declared all these new movies, said, dropping names where people were like, hang on, that's still part, and he's just made it worse. So let's have a look at this. So DC Studios CEO James Gunn decided to abort James Gunn's upcoming Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom by declaring that no DC properties until Creature Commandos will be canon. Gunn recently made his declaration in a response to a confused Threads user who asked him, "You said DC Studio movies and canon start with Superman Legacy. I and many others are still confused. Are the returning actors playing new versions of the same characters? Is this like a J.K. Simmons as James Jonathan situation?" Now, for the characters that are returning, he has confirmed John Cena's Peacemaker will be staying. Viola Davis's Amanda Waller is staying. And Solo, however you pronounce his second name, his Blue Beetle is staying. So there's already a confusing part. How is that version of Blue Beetle a part of the DCU, but not the Blue Beetle movie? That's the DCEU. Well, let's have a look at some of what he responds with, because it just makes it even more of a mess. So the Superman Legacy director responded saying, "Nothing is canon until Creature Commandos next year, a sort of apparative to the DCU, and then a deeper dive into the universe with Superman Legacy after that." He added, "It's a very human drive to want to understand everything all the time, but I think it's okay to be confused on what's happening in the DCU since no one has seen anything from the DCU yet." Well, how is that possible if Peacemaker, Viola Davis's Amanda Waller, and Blue Beetle are a part of the DCU? That would mean we have seen something. He elaborated in a follow-up post, and this is where it gets proper messy and confusing. "And yes, some actors will be playing characters they've played in other stories, and some plot points might be consistent with plot points from the dozens of films, shows, and animated projects that have come from DC in the past, but nothing is canon until Creature Commandos and Legacy. How confusing is that? So those characters are coming out of the DCEU into the DCU, but some of their plot points, threads that were from the films, movies, TV shows, and even animated projects can come over. What? What does that even mean? How confusing is that? Gunn would also provide clarity regarding Blue Beetle. A user asked, I'm wondering, how does the Blue Beetle movie factor in at this point in time? In the past, you had said it was included in the new DCU, but some statements are conflicting. Will it have any relation to the future projects, i.e. the Booster Gold show? The CEO replied, Solo, however you pronounce the second name, will continue playing Blue Beetle in the DCU, as Viola Davis will Amanda Waller and John Cena will Peacemaker. That right there doesn't clear up what that guy just asked. Especially with the conflicting. It's like, hang on, you're saying nothing is canon until Creature Commandos, but you're saying these characters were a part of. He said this version of Blue Beetle was in the DCU. He would also address another user who balked at the idea of resetting the previous DCEU that began with Man of Steel. The user stated, seriously though, why should we invest time and effort in yet another shared universe? Just build on what's already there with slight course corrections as needed. Gunn replied, if you think anything as investing time and effort, no matter what shared universe, you definitely shouldn't be. Every story should be enjoyed and worth partaking in and of itself, without its attachment to an outside world. If it feels like homework, screw it. Shared universes should add fun to the individual stories, not the other way around. The individual stories and characters are much more important to me than the connections between them. And he's right in a part of what he says there, that yeah, it should be focused on the individual story. But at the same time, you are connecting it all together. Like, Superman Legacy isn't just going to be Superman. You've already added, 4 other superheroes into that story, which means you are directly connecting it to this expanded universe. You're bringing in Blue Beetle, that's already from the DCEU. So you've already connected, and you're saying some of the threads and stories that were in previous stories from years of material could come true. So you've already said there that you're connecting it all together. But then you're trying to say, but screw it, it's not connected. Like, oh, he should just shut up at this point. But there you go. How to make a confusing situation even more confusing, courtesy of James Gunn just not being able to shut the hell up. And I'm telling you right here, right now, if Creature Commandos gets next to 0 views, and if Superman Legacy tanks at the box office, I'm talking about if they spend like 200 plus million on that movie and it barely, if even, cracks 400 million, which means it loses a significant amount of money, I think they pull the plug. I think it's done. I think Zaslav just goes, no, we're done. That's it. Everything, it's on hold for the next 5 to 10 years. We'll revisit it at some stage. You could leave, obviously, the Batman 2 and Joker 2 because they are not connected to the DCEU EU or DCU. They are their own thing in their own world. But other than that, like, realistically, they should just pull the plug before any of this crap comes out, before they invest money. No one wants Creature Commandos. Nobody wants an Amanda Waller TV series. And absolutely nobody wants or even knows who the Authority is. And that's going to be your second movie. Big mistake. Big mistake. I think the James Gunn, Peter Safran DCU is dead on arrival. There's no interest in it, and every time he opens his mouth, he just makes it more confusing. It's an absolute shit show, and it should just be left alone at this point. Well, what do you think? Let us know in the comments. And like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And with that, I'll leave it there for this one. So cheers. I'll catch you in the next one.